Tasty Planet is a game that I feel many people know about. It was a classic in the Flash game era, along with the greats like Papa's Pizzeria, Run, or Strike Force Heroes. Tasty Planet is a game about a gray glob of goo that consumes things and gets bigger and bigger. The original game came out in late November of 2006, with the sequel, Tasty Planet Back for Seconds, which is also called Dinotime, coming out 4 years later in September of 2010. After that, the studio, Dingo Games, made a spin-off of sorts called Tasty Blue, where you control fish with the same premise. You eat things smaller than you to grow, and you grow until you beat the level. The latest game is Tasty Planet Forever. The game released mid-October of 2018, and it's been close to 3 years since the release of the game. There are 8 levels per game, and apparently there are also bonus levels, which I never knew existed. It says on the wiki to beat the timed mode to unlock these levels. I also recently noticed that on Steam, there are 3 more games in the Tasty Planet series, and I will be definitely checking them out in the future. From what I can see, they're just remakes, but it should still be fun to play them regardless. I am very excited to see what Tasty Planet Forever is all about. Apparently there are now 8 playable characters with their own storylines, and it's the biggest game in the Tasty series. As a kid, games where you grew stronger and stronger really interested me. I never knew what the genre is called, so whenever I found a game like that, I got hooked instantly. Tasty Planet most likely made that interest even bigger, and that's why I enjoy roguelikes so much. A big part of the game for me was the music. The soundtrack is a bit repetitive, but it's still a jam nonetheless, and it's still very memorable to me. What I found while recording is that the first game takes twice the time as the second to beat. I'm pretty sure I did bad, but the completion time will definitely change with the person playing it. The first game took me about 20 minutes, when the second took me 10 minutes. The game is really easy, it would be hard to lose in it. Both of the last levels in the original and Dinotime gave me a hard time though, because they end up being really long levels where you can die pretty easy. And then you have to start the entire level over again. There isn't much to talk about when it comes to the levels and their design. Most of them have the same elements from that level before, but there are also some unique levels, like the one where you eat a city or the one where you eat a ton of candy. Something I don't like about the game is how most of the time, you finish eating practically everything on the level, but then you're still not big enough to finish the level. At that point, you usually wait for more animals to spawn, so then it mostly depends on luck whether or not you get a gold medal. You could say that that's kind of what makes this game longer and not go by as fast, but I prefer the levels where it's quick. I'd rather it be a short and sweet game than a tedious waiting game. I find it weird how the game isn't one continuous level too. They could totally make that a whole different mode or something, but with the level system it just makes it odd how you lose size after every level. Many of the levels are just expanded from the level right before it, so I don't see why they wouldn't make a continuous level rather than just adding a little more stuff to an old one. This is more of a personal thing rather than a criticism though. The game is based on an interesting theory. The goo you play as is based on the gray goo theory that says nanotech that can replicate themselves would be something that could easily end the world. This game takes the whole gray goo thing more literally. I think nanomachines would be cool, but it's just a little cooler and easier to understand when it's a massive pile of goo. They could make another game in the series where he's actual nanomachines instead of just a goo. You would see the machines deconstruct things to rebuild more of themselves. I think that visual would be really cool. Almost all the time you hear about gray goo, it's a bad thing. Even in this game, the goo's effect on the planet is negative, especially since at the end of the game you eat the entire solar system. However, some scientists have tried to think about the positive effects that this kind of technology would have. The scientists say that they could solve the world's energy crisis or even clean up the environment. I imagine if the bots needed plastic to build each other, they could get rid of the Pacific garbage patch and many of the world's landfills within a couple of years. Britannia says that the cheapness and abundance of materials, since the basic building blocks of the technology are at a molecular level, would make it easy and cheap to create any product, including incredibly inexpensive pocket supercomputers. So how would you stop the gray goo? In the game, you need to be hit by an object bigger than you, or you get eaten by a bigger animal. Even in the human levels, the police can somewhat deal damage to you with a gun. In all of these scenarios though, the gray goo would realistically survive. The second level shows us that the goo can eat blood cells, so being eaten by an animal wouldn't actually stop the goo. Shooting the goo would also feed it bullets. It would increase in size even if it weren't by much. In real life, scientists say to put limits on how many nanobots can be made, or even requiring rare materials to create the bots. All of the solutions are all proactive, meaning that they are all doing something to prevent it rather than reactive, which is when they stop the problem after it's already been started. The fact that they're all proactive just means that we basically can't stop them after they're created and they start snowballing. It may be better to just not create this technology at all. However, Britannia also says that because of the enormous complexity involved, it is not easy to create such nanobots, and it is unlikely that they could easily be created given current technological limitations. There is always a critical mass in the levels, a size where you can just eat a whole ton of something and beat the level within seconds. I feel like this is how it would be if this happened in real life. I don't really have much else to talk about with this game. It's a very simple game and a simple concept, even if that concept is somewhat terrifying. What do you think about the Great Goo? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.